Happy to see everybody here today. Another successful day in the Missouri House. We're going to start with allowing the pro tem to talk a little bit about the tax bill that passed the House this week, which was obviously a substantial accomplishment. I want to commend the pro tem on the way he's handled this. He's worked from the beginning of session to try to put together a package that we think moves Missouri in the right direction in terms of tax policy. So with that, I'll turn it over to Speaker Pro Tem.
Well, obviously,
can everybody just give your names first so we make sure we identify you correctly?
Well, I'm Todd Richardson. For those of you joining us in the Capitol during these times, and I'm the Speaker of the House.
Elijah Haahr, Speaker Pro Tem.
Rob Vescovo, Majority Floor.
Okay.
Obviously, the tax bill came out this week, 91 to 61. We're very happy with the vote total. It came on with an amendment that came through fiscal review to delay the implementation for 1 year. We have an updated fiscal note on the bill that's significantly better than the one before that, which was better than the one before that. So we're very hopeful and optimistic. We've got a month left of session. We're going to send it over to the Senate and see what kind of discussions we can have with them.
The Senate just stalled their own tax bill today. Why do you think they would take yours up?
Well, first of all, they've already passed a separate tax bill. They've had several different pieces of tax-related legislation. The one from Senator Eigel that's going through the process a little bit slower than the others. That's a Senate discussion. That bill is different from ours in a variety of different respects. The way they fund roads, the size and scope of the reductions in income and business tax, and the way they pay for it. So even though both bills are significant in size, they have very different goals. So and very different pillars underneath them. And so I think our bill warrants an entirely different discussion than the one by Senator Eigel.
Mr. Speaker, the judge in the felony case against...
Hold on, Ellie, before you get there. Any other questions on the tax bill? All right.
Mr. Speaker, the judge in the felony case against Governor Greitens declined to dismiss the case. How does that impact the deliberations up here where impeachment is concerned?
Well, it doesn't impact our discussions at all. As I said last week, the Missouri legislature is a separate and co-equal branch of government. No matter how that decision had gone today, the House and the Senate would continue to go through our process. Our role and responsibilities here are different than the role of the court in the city of St. Louis, so it doesn't impact it at all.
What is the likelihood that articles of impeachment will be approved by this committee?
We have a process that is set up and put into place, and that process is for our committee to work through all of the things they're working through and to come back to the General Assembly with recommendations. I've asked that committee to continue to operate as expeditiously as they can, but as thoroughly as they can. Anytime you're talking about exercising what is one of the most consequential of legislative powers, you shouldn't act rashly. We're not going to take it lightly, and we're going to move as quickly as we can and do a thorough job.
You think the governor should
Hold on,
step...
excuse me, Elliot.
Any possibility of a House debate on impeachment in the remaining 4 weeks?
Look, I'm not going to put any artificial deadline on this committee. When the committee is finished with their work and makes their recommendations, the House will be in a position to take it up. But I'm not going to put any sort of deadlines or artificial limitations. David?
Earlier you had mentioned that report, that recommendation would be coming after the regular session.
Well, what I said clearly is that the committee didn't believe at that point in time that they would be able to finish their work before the end of session. I think they still believe that they need additional time to do that work, which is why we have begun the process of calling ourselves into a special session. My point last week and my point this week is there's not going to be an artificial timeline or a deadline here. We're going to let the committee work. We're going to let them work as thoroughly as they need to. And when they come back with recommendations, we'll be ready to take them up. Jason.
Do you have any heartburn about sending legislation or the budget to the governor that you're asking to resign?
When we have 115 members of the Missouri House and a supermajority in the Senate, I'm not worried about adverse action out of the governor's office. Our bills don't get signed until the 30th of May and transmitted to the governor then. So I'm not concerned about that. No.
You still think the governor
Yes,
should...
Rudy.
Does Representative McCann-Beatty's resolution expanding the authority of the committee need to be passed by the House? And what is your response to Senator Richards' statement that the House should impeach immediately?
Yeah, it does not need to be passed by the General Assembly to allow the committee to come back with recommendations. The committee's task is to investigate the facts, and as I said last week, their task is going to be to make recommendations. So no, the House doesn't need to take it up. I think the Pro Tem and I remain committed to the same process, and he and I have been in constant contact, and that is we both want the House committee and the legislature to execute a thorough and fair process, and a process that makes sure that the members of the General Assembly, who are going to be tasked with deciding some of those recommendations, that they have the most information that they need in front of them to make a good decision.
Do you still think the governor should resign?
Mr. Speaker, how many signatures do you have so far on that letter?
I haven't seen the updated proclamation, but a substantial number of the members of our caucus, and we'll begin working with members of the minority caucus next week for their signatures.
So you
as
don't
well.
have that 3/4 yet?
No.
Mr. Speaker, do you still think the governor should resign?
I stand by what I said earlier this week, along with the Pro Tem and the majority floor leader. And so yes is the answer to that question.
The
Yes,
Democrats
sir.
have said
Yes,
they do not
excuse
want
me.
a special.
Excuse me. Yes, sir.
Can you give us a range of signatures for the special session?
I don't have an update for you on that right now. A substantial number.
More than 50?
A substantial number.
The Democrats have said they don't want a special session. They want to handle in the regular session. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is, look, I think everybody wants this process to resolve itself as quickly as it can. What I don't want to have happen is a artificial deadline that causes our committee to have to work with undue haste. I think every member of the General Assembly should want this process to have fundamental fairness in it. I think they should want the committee to be able to complete its work, and the General Assembly have time to take up whatever recommendations and whatever information is in that report without an artificial deadline.
Just to be clear, is it possible that recommendation could still come before the regular session?
I haven't spoken with the chairman on the additional information that the committee has. All of you saw the Attorney General's press conference, and obviously they have information to share with the committee. So I don't have a sense yet of whether the committee's timeline has changed. The overriding message is going to be this committee is going to have the time it needs to finish its work.
You're
Thank you all.
confident. You're
Thank you all.
confident.